Hello everyone. Before we start, I would like to say that this is a fan fiction written by one of my lovely friends. The link to her Wattpad account will be in the description so you can check the story out for yourself as well. Coffee Disaster, an Akashi Keiji ex-listener fanfiction. Crap! You screamed as you shot up from your bed. You, YN, are a 19-year-old college student who works a part-time job at a coffee shop, which you are now running late for. While still pulling up your pants, you hop out of your room to the kitchen to grab a piece of toast. As you gorge on the piece of toast, you grab your bag and jacket quickly and run out of your apartment in hopes of arriving on time at your job. As you run into the alley behind the coffee shop, you can see your boss waiting at the back door. "That is 10 minutes late, YN. What is your excuse this time?" your boss asked while raising a brow. My cat ate my work schedule," you answered hesitantly. "Yeah, sure," she said while rolling her eyes and smiling slightly. "Get inside, you can start making cinnamon rolls." You nod as you slip past your boss through the open door inside. You put on your apron and start working on the cinnamon rolls. You were about 4 hours into your shift and had finished 32 cinnamon rolls when your boss walked into the kitchen with one of your co-workers, Akira. Akira looked really pale, so you grabbed her a glass, filled it with cold water, walked over and gave it to her. She gladly took it. "What's wrong?" you asked, concerned. "Akira isn't feeling well. Could you take her job for the time being, Wan?" your boss asked. You nod, grab a notepad and pen, and walked out of the kitchen. If there was one thing you hated about your job, it was being a waiter. You were quite good at baking goods, but as soon as you started to serve things, you were bound to drop the bagels and spill the coffee. Even though you were at great risk with serving things, you did what you were told and tried to be as careful as you could. You walked in front of the shop and saw that luckily there weren't that many people. "Let's hope it stays this way until someone else shows up," you muttered while approaching a couple in the far left corner of the shop. That was 5 orders without spilling coffee. Could today be the start of the day that God chose to be on my side? You thought to yourself as you started to make a pumpkin spice latte for your 4th order. But when you turned around and saw who walked into the shop, you knew you were doomed. Akashi Keiji, your crush since your first year in Fukurodani. At this moment, you knew Satan had chosen you as his next victim today. You carefully finished the drink and brought it to the woman waiting at the counter. "Here's your pumpkin spice latte. Is there anything else you'd like?" you asked the woman, politely handing her the drink. "Could I get 2 cinnamon rolls, please?" she asked, smiling sweetly. "Of course, just a second," you answered. You turned around and put 2 cinnamon rolls in a bag and handed it to the woman. "That'll be $12.77, you stated, and the woman paid. "Thank you, and come again," you said, smiling widely at the woman. She gave you a nod and smiled back before leaving the shop again. Now you had to walk over to Akashi to take his order. "Oh God," you thought while shuffling your way over to his table. "Hello, what can I get for you today, sir?" you asked while nervously fidgeting with the pen you had in your hands. As he looked up from his book and met your eyes, you felt the heat creep up your cheeks. "I would like a mocha and..." He paused, scanning the menu. "One of your famous cinnamon rolls, please," he ended. You quickly scribbled it down and said, "Coming right up," while giving him a closed-eyed smile. As you turned around and walked back to make Akashi's order, it felt like your soul could leave your body at any moment. Little did you know that Akashi was constantly stealing glances at you and smiling at your clumsiness. Crap, you thought. That was another cup you knocked down. Quickly grabbing a towel and throwing it into the puddle to let it absorb most of the liquid. While you left that, you went further with Akashi's order. You had already grabbed a cinnamon roll, and now you only had to make the mocha he asked for. After finishing that up, you put the cinnamon roll and the cup of coffee on a tray and went over to his table. But what happened then was you tripped. You tripped on air. But worst of it all was that you spilled the entire cup of coffee on Akaashi's white blouse and on the book he was reading. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry," you said while your eyes widened in shock. "Oh, it's fine," he said while giving you a small smile. "No, it's not. I just spilled hot coffee on you and your book. Let me grab a towel to dry it," you said. And before you could protest, you already stormed off on your quest to find a towel to use. The first towel you saw, you grabbed and ran back over to him. As you tried to dry the stain with the cloth, you only made it worse. You realized a little too late that the towel you grabbed was the same that you had put over the coffee you'd spilled earlier. You apologized again and ran off to find a clean towel this time. As you returned, you tried to dry the stain a bit, but it wasn't murking as much anymore. The coffee had already cooled down somewhat, so Akashi was able to let go of the fabric of his blouse and let it touch the skin of his chest. As you bowed deep again to offer your apologies, you noticed the name of the book he was reading. The Hobbit. Gotta keep that in mind, you thought. I, again, apologize. Your next order will be on the house to make up for it. Well then, I'd like 4 of your cinnamon rolls to take with me to my home, if that's alright, he asked. Of course, right away, you quickly answered and hurriedly scurried off to grab 4 cinnamon rolls. You put them into a bag and brought them back to Akashi. Here you go, sir. I hope you can forgive me and come again. Have a nice day, you said while bowing a straight 90 degrees. Will do, he said, and left without another word to go home. Right after he left, your boss came walking out of the kitchen. Daisuke is here to take over, she simply said and disappeared again. You turned around and walked after her, completely red with embarrassment. You were glad you could get back in your shell in the kitchen. After you finished your shift at 1 in the afternoon, you immediately went to the bookstore to look for the same book that Akashi was reading. You were determined to find a new one for him, as you felt like you really needed to do more to repay him. As you walked through a few streets, you finally saw the store that you were looking for. Oliver's bookstore. Once you were inside, you happily greeted your father's old friend. Hi, Oliver. Hi, Ryan. Pleasure to see you again. What can I help you with? He greeted back. Well, I'm looking for a particular book called The Hobbit. Do you by any chance have that here? Yes, I certainly do. If you will excuse me for a moment, he answered while already starting to walk to one of the big bookshelves in the back. A few moments later, he returned with an exact copy of the book Akashi was reading before. That's the one I was looking for. How much does it cost? $14.99. You handed him the money and took the book from him. You left quickly after and went home. You were kind of curious to see what the book was about, so when you came home, you jumped on your bed and got the book out of the bag to start reading the back. Okay, so if you got it right, the book was about a man who was from the species hobbits, and he went on an adventure with dwarves and a wizard. I mean, it sounds like a fun book to read. If there was one genre of books you didn't mind reading, it was fantasy. You looked at your alarm clock on your bedside table and saw that it was now 6 p.m. You decided that you should wrap the book as a present, order some pizza, and get some homework done before you'd head to bed. That is exactly how your evening went. The next morning, you got out of bed extra early to make sure you had enough time to prepare yourself and so you wouldn't arrive late again at work. You indeed got to the coffee shop very early, and your boss told you to start baking goods again, just like yesterday. A few hours into your shift, You got a sign of one of your co-workers that Akashi had arrived in the cafe. You didn't hesitate for a second to grab the book out of your bag and quickly walked over to the front of the shop. As soon as you spotted him, you grew way more nervous than you were before. You shyly walked up to him. When you stood beside him, he looked up and smiled at you. You felt your knees get weak and got butterflies in your stomach. Your cheeks were glowing redder than hot iron. You quickly bowed and put the present in front of him. I am so sorry I spilled coffee on you and your book yesterday. If you could please take this as an apology, I'd appreciate that. If there's anything other than that I could do to make it up, please let me know. Akashi looked at your bowing form and slowly grabbed the book. Well, there is one thing you could do, he said. Yes? You asked while standing up straight again but avoiding eye contact. You could let me take you on a date after your shift, he suddenly said. Wait, what? You stared at him in awe. Are you serious? He quickly looked away from your surprised face with a small blush spread across his cheeks. Only if you want to, of course, he said while moving his gaze back to you again. Sure, I'd like that, you answered with a big smile on your face. He smiled back and you slowly turned around and walked back to your working station in the kitchen. The rest of your shift went by quicker than expected, and before you knew it, you and Akashi went on your first date together.